Alright guys, now first off, I wanted to show you the speakers that we chose. Now we are not trying to upgrade this stereo. All we're trying to do is you know, try to get it back to close to the original sound. Bearing that in mind, we're not going to be adding any amplifiers or anything like that. So went to Best Buy and we finally decided on a set of these. Hope you can see that. These are the KS series. So KSC 6930 6x9s by Kicker. I'm hoping that these sound okay, you know, just running with the factory low power stereo. We don't have the upgraded Boston acoustic system or anything, so I'm hoping these are going to be alright, but this is what we've decided to use. Now the adapters that we've decided to use actually came from carspeakeradapter.com. It's these here, and interesting little story. Part of the reason that it's taken me so long to make this second video is we've been waiting for 2 weeks on these adapters. They shipped them out. I live in Tennessee, and this place that makes these is in Pennsylvania. Well, for some reason they shipped from Pennsylvania from the sorting center, and instead of coming one state over to me here in Tennessee, I don't know if there was a mix-up or what, but these got sent all the way to freaking California, guys. So I was supposed to get these a week ago, and the day they were supposed to come in, the tracking number updated and said that there was no longer a expected delivery date, and that's when I found out they had been shipped to California. But anyway, these are the adapters we're going to use. I think I'm going to go around it with some electrical tape just to try to seal all this off, and probably going to use some silicone or something around the bottom before I set them down for the, you know, the final install, to kind of seal them up, keep them from rattling a little bit. Your factory speakers have this this little connector here. Now you can buy adapters that plug into here and wire into the new speakers. I'm not going to go that route because we're on a budget. So what I've decided to do is, since, you know, we're not going to use these anymore. Yeah, I'm just being an ass now. But since we're not going to use these factory speakers again, what I've decided to do is I'm actually going to cut off this connector, and we're going to make some adapters. So to cut this adapter off, I'm going to use a angle grinder with a cutoff disc. You could also use a Dremel tool to cut this out, but you know, we're gonna cut it out right here and right here. So we got our little plug cut off, snip the ends, and this is what we're left with. Now what's cool is it already has the little blobs of solder, however you pronounce it. I'm from down south, guys, so if you're from up north, feel free to laugh at my accent. So what we're going to do, I'm sorry this is not here. Let me see if you can, that helps it focus. Probably not. Really need a new camera, guys. But what we're going to do is we're going to solder or whatever wire to this on either end here. And our new speakers came with these little short lengths of wire here that you know, it's got the got our spade connectors, female spade connectors to attach to the speaker, and then we've got, you know, our bare wire here. So I'm going to solder these ends here onto either side of this, and that's how we're going to make our adapters. Okay, so we have made our adapters, got our wires soldered there, and you know, I chose, since the connectors were already crimped on there and everything, I didn't want to cut the wire. You don't need that long length of wire though, so I just went ahead and used the twist tie back on it. So now our adapters just plug right into our new speakers here. And then this end will just plug into your factory harness. No need to, you know, cut or hack on your factory harness at all. Something I failed to mention earlier, if you look inside, see the numbers 2 and 1. Now these are the adapters that we made from pieces of our factory speakers. Very important here, guys, on these rear speakers, the number 1 is going to always be the negative. So both sides, make sure you solder the negative to the number 1 terminal. And you know, your negative wire is the one with the black stripe, or you know, the solid black wire. It just depends on what you've got. The next thing I'm going to address is mounting the speakers into the adapter brackets. That goes to the inside, okay? Your little screw hole on your adapter that was on your old speakers. So, you know, just face your speakers accordingly, and just sit down in there like that. And looks like carspeakeradapters.com has already pre-drilled mounting holes. They don't all line up perfect, but we're just going to take the screws that came with the speakers, and that's what I'm going to try to use to mount them. Actually, after looking at these brackets, I think I might have actually said earlier, I'm going to take and run some electrical tape around the outside of them here, just to kind of seal these holes off. Something else I decided to do, you can do this or not, but I got to thinking about it. You know, this is plastic, and it's a really, you know, it's like a hard plastic. And what I was afraid might happen is once the speaker was in here, if it didn't fit perfectly everywhere, you know, maybe when you were on some bassier songs, or I don't even know if that's a word, bassier, but you know, I was afraid it might cause some rattling. So what I decided to do is just take a piece of electrical tape and go all around the mounting face here. This isn't, you know, to sound deaden or anything like that. This is just to keep this plastic from vibrating against the metal that goes around the speaker there. So now that I've done that, I'm going to set the speaker in and, you know, run my 4 screws in. If you choose to, you know, run these in with a drill like I did, just make sure you don't over tighten them, okay? I ran them down just to snug them a little, and then I went back with a handheld screwdriver to do my final tightening. I'm gonna be honest, guys, the material this is made out of has me kind of worried. It almost feels kind of brittle, but it didn't crack or anything, so we're gonna roll with it, see what happens. So I guess the next thing we need to do is go test fit these in the Camaro. After doing some test fitting in the car, I'm going to have to say that this design could really be improved upon. There's several issues that I've got. The biggest issue is, you know, on the factory speakers, there's a plastic hook that comes down and over, and you slide this part into, you know, the slot, and then you run a screw down here and it holds it down. Now, you know, I'm not saying reproduce that way of mounting, because honestly I would rather solid mount, but the problem is this piece here on the adapters, where these screw holes are, it's literally open space the way the rear deck's cut. So I'm not sure if I didn't get any instructions. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to sandwich, like make a piece of metal or plastic or something to run the bolts through here, you know, through the big open hole in the rear deck, and then sandwich another piece of material there to squeeze this down, or what I'm going to do. This is actually going to take a little fabrication with these brackets. Another issue, and this isn't as much to the brackets as to the screws that came with the speakers. The screws go all the way through the bracket and poke out the bottom. Well, the problem is the speakers are going to sit just slightly crooked because a couple of these screws want to hit the rear deck. You could drill holes, I guess, mark it and drill holes in the rear deck for those screws to kind of sit in. But the problem is the material that these are made out of, these adapter brackets, I feel like if this screw was not long enough to go through both pieces, I feel like like this would just fall apart. So it almost has to go through both pieces, not just to hold the speaker to the bracket, but seemingly to hold the bracket together. I mean, you can see this is, I mean, it's pretty flimsy. So I don't know. I'm going to try to work around all this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm not going to be recommending these brackets. So I was going to put a link to the website in the bottom of the description, but I don't think I'm going to, because I don't think I'm going to recommend these brackets. Okay, to deal with the issue of the screws sticking through the bottom here, what we did is, or what I did rather, is I just took a pair of dikes, you know, once the screw was tight, took a pair of dikes, snipped the ends off, and it left just a little nub there. And I've got this small grinding wheel that I'm just taking and, you know, just carefully grinding the little nub off so it'll sit flush. You don't want to get it too hard or you'll melt this plastic on these adapters. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is set the speaker in the hole, and I'm going to go ahead, let's see here, I'm going to go ahead and run this screw in it and try to get it, you know, even in the deck so I can figure out what to do about these two screw holes. You can see what I was talking about earlier is I wish they would have made this part of the bracket longer, where it would come out to here, where they could have put these holes right here in these little cutaways. But since they didn't, they did include this hardware. I'm assuming what I'm supposed to do, since I didn't get any instructions, is to run these screws down from the top and then put the washer right here and run the nut up. And I guess the washer being here against this area is supposed to be good enough to hold the speakers. I'm not too happy about that. I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to see, I've got some aluminum stock in there. I'm going to try to cut a piece of aluminum stock about this wide and drill matching holes in here so that it'll hold this down better than if this was through here with, you know, just this washer and nut on it. I do not trust that. To me, that just seems like a rattle waiting to happen. So let's go do that. Well, try not to give me too much flack, guys, over my mess here. This is what a workbench looks like when you actually use it a lot. But anyhow, so here's what I'm going to do. I've got these little pieces of aluminum stock that I was actually using for something else a while back, but they're perfect for this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut them off the same length as these, and we're going to drill holes that correspond to these in them there, so that this gives like a flat surface a flat surface to clamp down to the rear deck instead of just, you know, a washer here and a washer there. As far as the way they look, I'm not worried about that, because what we're going to do is cut a piece of that what am I looking for, guys? Sound deadening material. We're going to cut a piece of that sound deadening material and probably wrap it around it, and then, you know, put it on there and run our bolts through with our washers on it. So no rattles, and you won't even be able to see this. You'll just see the sound deadening foil on the back side of it. Don't forget your safety glasses. I was not able to get any dynamite, but the local hot rod shop where I'm at had some of this Coolit Thermotech, which is basically the same thing as dynamite, but it's heat and acoustical control mat, and I think it's a little bit cheaper than dynamite. Actually, I paid $35 for this piece, and it is 24 by 36. Here's the part number on it. You know, in case you want to order some. Now you can get this from Summit or Jegs, you know, places like that. Or like I said, I've got a hot rod shop performance products that's about, I guess 1.5 miles from my house. So, you know, it was just convenient for me to, you know, to use this stuff instead of ordering Dynamat and waiting on it to get here. The next part, I had to move in here to the kitchen table. I needed a little more room to work, and didn't feel like cleaning up my workbench right now. So anyway, oh, you can see my husky down there. See his tail sticking up. Anyway, I want to say this next part is completely optional. I mean, at this stage, you could just take your speakers and, you know, set them in the rear deck and screw them down if you wanted to. This whole sound deadening thing, you know, this is, like I said, this is optional. This is just something I'm doing to hopefully keep things from rattling. So, first thing I'm going to do, got my sheet of Thermocool sound deadening slash heat control. I'm just going to lay that down here on the table. You know what? I'm going to lay it down this way. Hopefully you guys can see this. Okay, so my goal here, you know, I'm not insulating the whole rear deck, guys. That's not what I bought this stuff for. My goal here is just to cut out a square big enough to go around the speaker, so that, you know, when I set the speaker down on it, you know, it acts kind of like a gasket for the speaker. All right, so if you want to, you can just skip what I'm doing right now. If you're using this stuff and you want to sound deaden your whole rear deck, then, you know, by all means, just take this stuff out there and stick it down your rear deck and roll it down. But that's not what I'm doing. So I'm just going to cut a square, you know, a square big enough to go around each speaker. And we're just kind of freehanding it. Like I said, not a big deal. I mean, nobody's going to see this but us. So, let's see. Okay, so we got our squares. We put away the rest of it to save for future projects. Probably going to put some on the inside of the doors if we replace the front speakers at some point. But may use some in one of my other projects too. But anyway, the next thing that we need to do is to clean the metal on the rear deck really well. Get rid of all the dust and stuff, because you know, if there's any dust on there, this stuff is not going to want to stick. We are just going to peel the back off this stuff. Super sticky, guys. I mean, wherever you lay it down is where it's going to be. So I say that as I'm trying to maneuver it. You got to pretty much get it right where you need it right off the bat. Also, the hotter it is, the stickier this stuff's going to be. So I would definitely not recommend doing this on a really hot day if you can help it. So we are going to try to lay it down right here. And just try to work it into all the little cracks and crevices. They actually have little rollers that almost looks like a little hard paint roller that you can use to work this into various areas. I don't have one of those, so I'm just using my fingers. You know, if you want to invest in something like that, great. But I just wanted to let you know that there are products like that out there if you want to use them. The next thing you want to do is take a razor knife and trim out your old speaker hole. We're also going to trim out where that ground wire bolts to. And then you can take something like, I've got this little pick tool, but you could also use a small screwdriver, and you want to go in from underneath and, you know, poke all your holes where your clips were, where your speaker mounting screw was, things like that, so that you know where to trim out from the top. So now, to save material, we're going to take our little bracket we made, and we're just going to take the material that is left over from the speaker hole that we just cut out, and just wrap our bracket up in that. And cut it out. Okay, now I want to stress again, you don't have to make this bracket. If you're satisfied with, you know, the whole washer setup, roll with it, guys. I'm just, you know, I want these to be solid, and I don't trust the setup that I was given, so I decided to fabricate something. Like I just said, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. That's just something I chose to do. At this point, we're going to set our first speaker in. And it's pretty much just like, you know, we've already talked about. You're going to set it in here. You're going to run your first screw in. And you're going to take your screws that came with your adapters. I hope this is focusing, and run them down through your adapter bracket. We've got our two screws coming down. We've got our bracket that we made. So we're going to stick that bracket up there. What's cool is if you cut it out the way I cut mine out, then the the sound deadening material actually holds the bracket while you get your nuts started here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get these started, and we're just going to try to make sure our speaker is pretty well centered, and I think it is. So at that point, we're going to take it's like a 9mm, or is it 10? Okay, they've given us 10mm nuts there, so we're going to take our 10mm, and I'm going to have to move the camera because I'm going to have to lay there. Because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use the ratchet on this side while simultaneously holding a shorty Phillips head screwdriver on the top side. Finished with all that. Just take your little adapter you made here. I'm trying to do this with one hand. Little adapter there. Plug it in. Okay guys, here's the part where I once again complain about these adapters. I have got these things as tight as humanly possible. You can see it's even pushing, like mushing the plastic down on these. And look at this. I don't know if you can see that. Sounds like a rattle waiting to happen, doesn't it? After putting one speaker in, we turned the radio on, and sure enough, it was kind of vibrating and rattling where it was loose in there. So I've decided what I'm going to do is, you know, take it back out, and we're going to take some of this material that we have left. I mean, I can cut more off the roll if I need to. We're going to take some of this material that we have left, and I'm going to cut a strip about yay long just to put here on both sides to make up that gap. Now I don't want to run it all the way around, because if I do, then it's just going to space it higher up and we're still going to have the same problem. So I'm just going to put a little strip in the middle here on both sides, and you know, hopefully that'll get rid of that vibration. Our speakers are in. The last thing I want to touch on before we start assembling the interior is make sure you cut out around these little elongated holes. Okay, those 4 holes correspond to these little purplish blue clips here. So that's why I said you want to cut out around them, because you want to make sure that these clips can go all the way in and fully engage. At this stage, we're reassembling the interior. We're just going to go in the opposite order that we did in the first video when we took it apart. So the first thing we're going to put in is the rear deck. Now, when you're putting the rear deck in, note that on the side that goes to the windshield, you have these. Okay, these little hooks. So what's going to happen, I hope I can get this on video, is you are going to kind of push the back end first and then come down to pop these clips in. Okay, I fully and wholeheartedly realize that this is not an ideal camera position, but unfortunately my cameraman started school this week and he's in the house doing his homework, so I'm just going to have to do the best I can. Like I said, we want to go forward first and make sure you get hooked in the front, then push down. I'm probably not going to be able to show this because I'm going to have to kick the I'm going to have to move the camera out of the way so I can get in here to where I need to be, guys, but I think you get the idea. Pop your clips in. Now I want to say, putting this rear deck back on, the only thing that really makes it difficult is that it doesn't feel like it's seated when it's seated. But the thing about it is, if you go underneath, and you can see all those little purple clips sticking through, you're good to go. Do not forget to plug in the harness for your third brake light right here on the passenger side. Now the next thing we're going to do is reinstall these side panels here. Now they just snap right in with more of those little plastic clips, and then you've got your 7mm screw that goes right here. Remember the one that I said you were going to be so tempted to not take out because it's hard to get to? I just used a little wrench. Could not get a socket on it at all, so that's what I'm recommending. Next, you've got your 7mm screw up here. Good news, guys, you can use a ratchet on this one. I'm so happy about that because that little bastard back there took me forever to work in with that tiny wrench. Sorry if you guys having a hard time hearing me. My neighbor's mowing the yard, but you know, can't ask him to stop his life just so I can shoot this video. Anyway, next we've got our little corner piece right here. This is the one, if you remember from the removal video, it's got this little safety clip that has to slide into this slot here. And I think what that's for is, you know, if this airbag pops out, it's so this piece doesn't go flying. It just kind of, you know, folds down. You'll see it's got that nub there. That nub corresponds to that slot. So what you need to do first is take this panel and shove it back here. I'm seriously trying to do this one-handed. There you go. See, that was easy enough. And am I in there? Yes, I'm in there. Then you will pull this little clip forward. I'm still doing this one-handed, guys. Feeling like a Camaro freaking rock star here. There we go. See, I slid that in there. That snaps in like that. Then the whole panel just snaps into place. Just like that. Easy peasy. With all that done, we need to bolt our seat belt back up here. The reason I waited until just now to bolt the seat belt up is because I wasn't sure if I was going to have to make any kind of adjustments on the panels. But the armrest panel down here is going to go on top of the seat belt, so now's the time to go ahead and bolt this in. Our last panel to go in is our armrest panel, which is also the largest panel. And if you remember from the first video, there's no real trick to this. It just shoves on, okay? Just make sure all your tabs are aligned and push. You want to get your seat belt out from behind it for sure. The seat belts aren't going to do a whole lot of good if you can't get to them, right? Like I said, just get all your clips aligned. There's actually some spikes that stick out to help with that. And then once everything's aligned, that easy, guys. Just pops right in. I know I said that was the last body panel, and yeah, so now I just feel like a total douchebag, but we still got our seal plate here on the door. So we've got our little alignment pins that go into the holes to make sure everything's lined up. And just snap that down. Now you might remember I had a lot of trouble getting these brackets to release on the back seat. So at this point, if you know, if you were able to use the brackets, then just snap your back seat back in. If you wanted to skip all the drama like I did, then just put your you know, set your seat in. The bracket will sit right on this middle stud here to align everything, and you can just put your one nut and your 4 bolts back in. Guys, for our last step, we're just going to put the seat bottom in. Don't forget to feed your seat belts through these little holes in the middle. Once you get that done, you're just going to push down. Get your there's little metal brackets back here, and there's a little metal pole on the back of the seat. So you're going to push it down to get it into the little metal bracket. And just take the front, push back and down till it snaps. So that's it. We're all done with the project. I hope this video helped some people out. If it did, hit the thumbs up button. Like, share, subscribe. It's about 100 degrees out here and humid. As you can see, I'm soaked with sweat. So I'm going to get in here, take me a shower, and I guess I'll see you guys next time on Bad Luck Garage.